Okay, so we're up to Simun Reish, and we're talking about the halachas of Zimun. And yesterday in Sif Aleph, we were talking about where there are three people who, and therefore there's a chiyuv of Zimun, and two of the people were still eating. One guy is finished, and he wants to get on with it. So he's not the balabas, as it were. He's got to wait for the other two to finish, and he can't impose on them to start making the zimun. However, the other way around, if two people are finished, then they can say to the third guy, listen, stop eating, put your sandwich down, we're going to do a zimun, and then this guy's got to wait, and he's got to do the zimun and listen, and then he can carry on eating. That's really what we saw yesterday. The question is, when, and this is what Sif Beis, what we're going to do today, what we're dealing with, is when this third person stops and does the zimun, how long does he actually have to stop for? So is it just for whilst they say Rabbi Nevarich until the end of that little section, or is it until the end of Hazonis HaKol? And that is a machlokus between the Mechaba and the Ramah. So it says the Mechaba in Sif Beis, Ein tzarich lahafsik ela ad sheyom baruch shechalnu mishaloi v'chayze v'goy mesudasa below bracha betchila. So all he has to do is wait until the person leading the zimun says Baruch Shechalnu Mishaloi v'Tuvei and then he can carry on so he can carry on his lunch below bracha b'tchila without making a new bracha at the beginning of Al Netilas Yadayim or Hamoitzi or whatever. Says the Ramah, V'yesh Oimrim shetzarich lahafsik ad sheyem hazonis hakol, which is probably what we're familiar with, and that is that you should wait until the Mavarich finishes the first bracha of Birchas Hamazon, hazonis hakol. V'chein nagin, that is our minhag. V'im hoyadaita lachza v'lechol pas, and if he intended this third person to continue eating bread, afal pi sheloi achal achakein, even though he actually didn't in the end, he actually has to, when he benches, he's got to bench from the beginning. He can't just carry on. He's got to bench from the beginning. And kolshkein, if he actually did eat, so then he's got to bench the whole thing. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah. Ad sheyoma. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotan Vav, the bezer levad yotzim yedei birchas hazimun. He's got to wait until they do the core zimun, just the Rabbi Nevarich, until Baruch Shechalnu Mishaloi v'Tuvei. And then once he finishes, he hears the Baruch Shechalnu Mishaloi v'Tuvei. So then this third person can carry on his lunch, and he can continue below bracha b'tchila. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotan Zayin, Tahainu she'ein tzorich oid hapam. And Netilas Yadayim v'Hamoitzi. In other words, it's not considered a hefsek for his meal, and he doesn't need to do Netilas Yadayim or Hamoitzi again. Shahari, why? Because he was in the middle of lunch. He didn't intend to stop his meal. He intended to continue. Now, but if he actually did not intend to continue eating, and he then decides he wants to carry on eating, so then if he decides to stop eating, and then he says, you know what, I've still got a bit of a sandwich left, I want to carry on, so then he needs a new Netilas Yadayim and a new Hamoitzi. Okay. Remember the Ramah argues and says that he actually has to wait until they finish the first bracha of benching hazonis hakol. Says the Ramah, V'yesh oimrim shetzorich lahafsik. Svir lehu, that after birchas hazon, lav legamre birchas zimun. That even though Birchas Hazon is not properly included in the bracha of the Zimun of the Zimun, because the individual does say the first bracha, it's still connected somewhat to Birchas Zimun. The Nevarich levad ain't a bracha, because just saying Rabbi Nevarich is not really a proper bracha. She'ein bo Shem v'malchus, it hasn't got the Shem Hashem. V'koya mashem mevorech hamazam enachach birchas hazon, and therefore it's connected to the bracha of hazon, and therefore the Ramah says that the person should wait until the mevorech finishes the first bracha. Ad she'im hazon, and then once he hears the end of the bracha, bracha to Hashem hazon isakal, then v'chayze v'goy mesud. Also says in Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotan Tes, he then finishes his meal. K'mei shekosa mechaba. And then he benches, when he's finally ready to bench, he will bench from the beginning of benching. Like the Ramos says at the end. Vatam, the after Shama Birchas Azon Piyam Mazamin, even though he did hear that first bracha from the Mazamin, Mikol Makom Hari Tzorech Levarich Kol Birchas Hamazon Bishvul Masha Achal Achkach. Nevertheless, he has to bench the full benching with what he ate afterwards. Even if he chose not to eat afterwards, Imrak B'dai Tohoya, he just intended to, so that he could hear the Zimun. He intended to finish off his meal. He has to start from the beginning of benching and not from where the Mazamin finished off, i.e. From Noidilacha. He's got to start from the beginning of benching. Because since his intention was to continue eating, he clearly indicated that he wasn't going to be yotze from this bencher. But if he did not intend to eat anymore, and Taki didn't eat anymore, but if he decided he didn't want to bench with them, and he wanted to hear the Zimun, and he intended for that guy to be yotze from the Birchas Hamazon of the Mevarich, then he only has to start from Noidilacha, like in any other situation when he hears Birchas Zimun, V'ayin le'el Siman Kuf Begimel Sif Zayin u'Mishnah Berurah Sham. Okay, now just the last little bit of Mishnah Berurah just wraps up a few loose ends. So again, just to clarify, when there are 3 people doing the Zimun and 2 people have finished eating, that obligates the third person to stop, to answer to the Zimun, and then to finish off his meal and to bench later. How long does he have to stop for? According to the Mechaber, just the Rabbi and the Vorich part, and according to the Ramah, the whole of the first bracha. Fine. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, the top line of the next page, Kosvu hapoiskim, the echod hamafsik l'shnayim, yochel hafsik kama pa'omim. The one person who's waiting for these 2 people finish eating, and he's waiting and he's going to carry on eating, he can actually do this many times. Like, what does that mean? Kagoin. So there were 3 people eating, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven and Shimon finish their lunch, and they say to Levi, listen, can you just hold off a little bit? We need to do a Zimun. Okay, so that obligates him, he's got to stop. And then they bench, he listens, and then he carries on eating. And 2 more people come and join him. Imagine like in a cafeteria, or in a school common room or something like that. 2 more people joining him. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and Yizachar, right? So 2 people join him. And this guy is just a very slow eater. And numbers 4 and 5 have finished eating already, and they say, listen, can you join our Zimun? So he can do that. It's not shaykh to say that their Zimun has evaporated, like we've discussed in the past, because numbers 4 and 5 haven't yet done a Zimun, and therefore their Zimun is alive and well. And this guy is eating again, he's got a lot of sandwiches, and number 4 and 5 have gone, and then number 6 and 7 join him. So Nochamal, he can do 3 Zimuns in one go, and more.
Does he answer the same thing as he answered?
Yeah, because it's a new Zimun each time. Okay. However, if there were 5 in the original setting, and 2 of them stopped eating, and they say to the third guy, hey, listen, can you join our Zimun? Then then he cannot do a Zimun with the other 2, because the Parach Zimun Minayu, because there they were all one setting, and once they did a Zimun, even part of them, then numbers 4 and 5 can no longer do their Zimun. Even if 3, 4, and 5 were continuing to eat, once numbers 1 and 2 did it, then it's no good. The Zimun is gone. So just to summarize, and I'll tell you when this could happen. This could happen on a Friday night. Let's say you're eating the meal, and you're sitting there after the meal and schmoozing, and some people need to go off to a shir or something. So there are 5 men there. So 2 of them could say, listen, we need to go. So can they say to the third guy, can you join our Zimun? Say that, right? So they join the Zimun. But because he's done that, and they're all sitting in one kviyas, the other 2, even though there are 3 people, the first 2 go off, and you're left with 3 people, since that Zimun is Porach Zimunayu, their Zimun has sort of disappeared now, and therefore they can no longer do the Zimun. And we're probably familiar with that, yeah. Okay. Avol, however, Im Hayu Shiva Ishmaina, if, however, there was a group of 7 or 8, v'hifsik l'shnayim mehem, and 2 of them had finished eating and they want to get to do a zimun, yochel achach lahafsik oida pam lashar. Then Mr. Number 3 can join numbers 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 or whatever to l'shayich b'zeh parach zimun minai. There it's different. Kim shoy bohen kadei zimun, because in the remaining people they've still got their zimun. So if 2 people want to do a zimun and they join the third, and the third person joins them, if there are only 2 more people there, then it's not going to work. But if there are more than 2 people there, their zimun is alive and well, and that would work. Oh,
So what's better, the 2 to join with 1 more?
in what situation where you got 5 or more people?
7 or 8.
If you got 7 or more, if 2 need to go, then they can do their own zimun, no problem. That's
So they should do
yeah,
just as
yeah.
one, and then-
If 2 have got to go, then they just take one of those people, they do the zimun, and Mr. Number 3 can then still do zimun again with the remaining people, because their zimun was never lost. Okay. Oid kosvu apoiskim b'shem she'echod. Sorry, kashem she'echod mafsik l'shnayim l'starf l'zimun. In the same way that 2 people one person has got to stop to join the 2 people like we've been talking about. Hu adin shleisha abot tzrichin lahafzim usudosim lahashlim la'asora levarich b'shem. So you got 10 people sitting at a meal, and 6 of them or 6 or 7 want to bench. So then 3 or 4 have also got to stop in order to let them, enable them to say Zimun with the Shem, Elokeinu. Ach, in that situation, they only have to stop until Baruch Elokeinu Shechalnu Shaloyev Tvachinu, and straight after that they can continue their lunch, they continue eating. And if they all ate together afterwards, they can actually do their own little zimun. In other words, you got 6 people, for example. You got 10 people sitting together. 6 of them need to go off. So they say, "Look, guys, we need to do a zimun. We haven't finished yet. Okay, but we'll continue eating." So 6, they all do their zimun. They say, etc. They do that. The remaining 3 or 4 can do another zimun later, because lo parach zimun minayu. Because they only joined together initially so that to enable them to say the Shem Hashem. And furthermore, if another group of people, 6 more, come along and join them, then they can again do the Zimun, not just the Zimun, but the Zimun B'Shem. Because just saying Elokeinu doesn't make their Zimun evaporate. Whenever you got 10 people, the Shechin is there. And so too, if you've got 5 people who stop because there are 5 people on a bench, that when 5 more people come and they eat together, then they can also do another Elokeinu. Okay, B'Seder, Mr. Hashem, tomorrow we'll finish Reish Aleph. Mr. Hashem.